Um, I died 2 years, about 3 years ago. I had a massive heart attack and a stroke, which put me in the hospital. Um, I flatlined at the hospital. I was dead for 18 minutes in a coma for 25 hours. And during those 25 hours, I was not here. My body was, and hooked up to a bunch of machines to keep it alive. But I crossed over the other side, and I met some friends from high school and some service buddies. I met my second wife, who died in 2006. I also met my youngest daughter, who died in 2006 at the age of 3, but she's now 19, no, well, she'd be 22 years old now, or 28, 20 years old now. It's grown into quite a young lady. I was kind of confused. Um, I was kind of confused when I crossed, and they set my mind at ease, and said that, yeah, Dad, you're dead. um, and when I died, I floated over. It's like floating on a kind of a swimming pool of warm jello. It's kind of hard to describe. I was completely surrounded by little points of light all over, above me, in front of me, beside me, below me, and I floated over. And at a point, the lights got larger and larger and then turned into people that I recognized. And I stood up. I was completely dry. I thought I was floating on water. I was not. I was completely dry. I recognized some of the people, and then my second wife and my daughter arrived, and began talking to me. I was very anxious, and I really didn't want to come back. Uh, I was told I had to come back, and I said, I don't want to. I like it over here. It's pleasant. It was very green. It was very forest, which would be my perception of heaven. I inquired as to whether I was going to stay here or go to hell, and I was promptly told that hell doesn't exist. Hell is a preconceived notion of earth-based clergymen to scare old ladies and little kids. And I said, really? And they said, yes. The existence that you have on Earth is your hell. How can you go somewhere you already are? I said, when you die, you go onto better. I said, well, that goes against what all the preachers said. Well, my daughter told me, said, well, if you go to a fiery pit of hell, that's not a very just God, is it, Dad? And I said, no, not really. He says, God puts you through 75, maybe 100 years of the worst that you can take. And if you break, it's not a big deal. You will go on to something much better. And I said, is heaven the same for everybody? He says, no. Heaven's different for everybody. What you perceive heaven to be is the heaven you will find. If you believe that you're going to float around on a cloud playing a harp with a pair of wings and a halo, that's where you're going to go. I believe in a happy hunting ground, what's called King Gudmundson's land. It's a giant forest where it's always warm. It never gets cold. You never have to worry about being cold. You never have to worry about being homeless because everybody has a place.
Were there entities that actually talked to you, or was it telepathy?
No, they were actually, their mouths were moving and I understood what they said.
These entities that are in
The
heaven.
entities, yes. The entities were just, when I first saw them, were just tiny, like fireflies. They were just tiny bits of light. And as I got closer to them, they morphed, is that a good word? Transmuted into human beings. On the assumption that they were non-corporeal beings, they were beings of energy, I poked them. They're solid. Where I went was a real place. I reached down, I touched the grass, I pulled the grass up and I smelled the dirt. It's a real place. I crossed over into another dimension, a very solid dimension. It's just as real and just as solid as this. If you tap the floor, it'll go thump. When I reached down and pulled up the grass, I could smell the grass and the dirt on my hands.
Were you drawn back into your human body?
Yes, much to my chagrin. I was on the other side for a little over a day. They have a sunrise and a sunset, just like we do. So the sun was midday when I arrived. I stayed one night in a really nice place, really nice house. My wife's place. And I left. I came back. I was drawn back. They took me down to where I met them, and they said, "You have to go back now." And I went back, and I was kicking and screaming when I left. I did not want to come back to this place. However, I met several friends, a couple of whom died in high school, a couple died in the military. And I told them, "Why am I going back? Why am I being sent back? I don't want to come back." And they said, "No, we have a mission for you. You have one more battle to fight." I said, "Battle as in, are you being, I can't remember the word I used, a real battle as in a war?" And they said, "Yes, you have one more battle to fight. People will look up to you. People will look to you for guidance. Once you win that battle, your time on earth is done. You can come back to us." And I came back, woke up in the hospital, hooked to a bunch of machines kicking and squirming, and I was not a happy camper.
Mr. Anonymous, didn't you have a previous death experience?
I did when I was 7 years old. I was involved in an airplane crash, and I was sole survivor out of 118 people. I was sole survivor, and I was comatose for about 2 days. The experience that I had as a 7-year-old, looking back, was almost precisely what I had when I was 56 years old. But I did not understand what was going on because my 7-year-old brain did not perceive the difference between life and death. And my spirit guide at that time was a celestial being. When I arrived, the celestial being came down, told me his name, showed me around, and he says, "One day you will live here." And it was the same forest, little houses all over, animals everywhere, little dogs and cats, things we would have on Earth. Squirrels go and he says, "Your brain does not understand what's going on. When you get older and your time on Earth is finished, you will come back to this place." They said, "Well, what if I'm a bad person and I do bad things?" And he says, "You will be judged while you are on Earth. You will suffer while you are on Earth. Once your suffering is over, you will come back to us." And I said, "So everybody goes to heaven?" "They go to a good place," is what he told me. He says, God is a just God. He is not going to make you burn in hell for 1,000 years simply because you drank too many beers or smoked too many joints or whatever people's perceived sin is. He's not going to make you roast in hell for 1,000 years because you did something wrong. You're going to be sitting here and you will have to atone for whatever bad that you did. But it's not like we're going to beat you with sticks every day or set you on fire, which I understood. So I lived my life knowing that any bad or pain or anything that I suffer down here is my hell. The pain I'm suffering in my legs right now, my back, my diabetes, this is my hell.
Did you have another experience in the military, Mr. Anonymous?
I did, but it was a very short one. I was involved with a air landing accident. It's a parachuting accident. But I was only dead for about 3 minutes, and it was not long enough to really have a.
Well, I appreciate your interview today, Mr. Anonymous. This is
Glad to help, and it's Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, 2024.
You might want to get a shot at the tree. We have a nice little tree set up at the